a dietetic intern from Seattle Pacific University. I'm here today at the Lynnwood Food Bank. We're making Jamaican brown stewed chicken. So today we're going to be making this with these chicken thighs. These are bone-in skin chicken thighs. These are a great option because they are very cost-effective, but there's a little bit of preparation work to do. Typically, with Jamaican stewed chicken, you want to remove all of the skin prior to cooking it. So we're going to debone and deskin these chicken thighs to prepare them for our recipe today. First thing I'm going to do is remove the skin. It's very easy. It pulls right off. Sometimes there's a little fat attached, so that part needs to be trimmed. We're going to be saving all of these food scraps today for our next recipe, which is going to be a bone broth. That's great for minimizing waste. See here, this happens very quickly. Takes little prep. We're just removing the flesh from the bone, and then we are saving the bones. Just tossing them aside here. So that is one boneless, skinless chicken thigh ready for our recipe. I'm going to show you a close-up of how to do this. So we separate the skin from the thigh. On one side it is attached, so there we will trim it. This part's discarded. Next up, we're going to find the bone in the thigh. We see it runs this way, so we slice down next to it, away from our fingers, on both sides. Then we can pull up the end of it, slice the flesh down the side. This is the bone. Here's the chicken thigh, boneless and skinless, ready to use in our recipe. Alright, so we have separated out the skin and bones from the meat of the chicken, and next we're going to prepare our marinade for this. First ingredient is a browning sauce. This is a Jamaican staple. You can find it at some specialty stores. We're going to do probably 2 tablespoons of that. We're going to do about 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. About a teaspoon of salt. Quarter teaspoon of black pepper. Again, a quarter teaspoon, this is ground ginger. Then half a teaspoon of allspice. This part is essential for the Jamaican flavors. And then lastly, we're going to do some minced garlic. Really easy way to prepare these. Alright, you take the cloves, you chop off the root part of it at the bottom, and then crush it with the side of your knife. Then the skins peel right off. These are more trimmings we're going to add to the bones for making our stock later for our next recipe. We're just going to finely chop this very quickly. Add it in with the rest. And then we're going to mix this up and set it aside in the fridge for about 20-30 minutes. So next up, we're going to prep our vegetables for this recipe. This includes green pepper. Just cut the top off. Pull the seeds out. Yellow onion. This we're going to cut the roots off of because they have a little bit of dirt. We're going to peel the top, and that goes in our vegetable scrap pile along with the chicken bones. And then we have, we'll go with about 8 of these green onions. These are to chop the roots off. These go with our food scraps. We'll chop the ends off, again in the food scraps. And then we will dice these finely. Set aside, these are going to be one of the last things we add. Now with the onions, we're also going to dice these finely. These are going to disappear into the sauce and kind of thicken it. Yep. Alright, now that I'm done crying with the onions, move on to the green peppers. These are another source of fiber in the dish, as well as vitamin C. These are very rich in vitamin C. It helps with the immune system function. These we're going to sliver up like this. That's the common way I've seen them done in this dish. We'll jump back shortly to frying the chicken. So next up, we're going to fry the chicken. We're going to start with a little bit of cooking oil. This here is just canola. It's high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are very good for heart health. We're frying it on a fairly low heat, and what we want to do is not overcrowd this pan. So we're going to do this in a couple batches and leave room between them. Otherwise you end up sort of steaming the meat rather than frying it. And what we're looking to do here is develop a little bit of browning on it. That is where all the flavor of this recipe comes from and some of the color. So in this there is that browning sauce. And while this is cooking, I can talk a little bit about that browning sauce. You may not have heard of browning sauce. That's because it's not as common in the US, but it is a great ingredient. It adds a really rich sort of flavor that is unique to Jamaican cooking. It's extremely easy to make, just a little time consuming. You take brown sugar and you cook it, caramelize it in a pan, kind of on a medium heat. You could do it a little faster than that, but it gets risky because when it burns it turns very bitter. So you cook it down slowly until it all begins to caramelize. You keep cooking it until it gets this dark brown sort of deep color. And then you add water to it to thin it out. And that's how you get something like this. So it's very easy to do just beforehand in this recipe if you're not able to find that at your local grocery store. Now we're not cooking these all the way through. We're really just browning them to get a little color on them. You see that browning sauce helps with the browning as well as offering the color itself. So as those sugars are caramelizing in the pan, you're developing more flavor. It's part of the Maillard reaction, which is an interaction between the proteins in this and the sugars. So what we're going to do is we're just going to throw them right back in here. Give those a couple more minutes and we'll cut back when these are done. Alright, these are done browning now. So they're not quite cooked all the way through, but that's fine because we're going to stew them later. This is just important for building up those flavors. So once we pull these out, we're going to go straight in with our vegetables there, with the exception of the green onions. These are just going to hang out on the side for now until we're ready for them. Traditionally, this dish is made with a whole chicken, so it's chopped up, quartered, bones and all, and then fried and stewed the same way. But these are just a really common cut of meat. It sort of makes it a little more simple that way. Let me get these in here quickly so the pan doesn't overheat. We'll start with the onions, as well as the peppers. This is going to deglaze the pan, sort of bring those bits of caramelized sugar from that browning sauce. Mix them in. This part's going to smell really good too, by the way. So you'll see all those little burnt and crisp bits lift up. Then we aren't going to cook this for too long. We're just getting it started. Get these browned a bit. And then after that, we'll go back in with the next section of our recipe, which is the stewing part. Alright, so these vegetables are just starting to soften up, and then all the goodness is lifted up from the bottom of the pan. Now we're going to put the chicken back in. We'll just dump it. Now this gets stewed. So this is where everything comes together and this chicken softens up. This is why it's used for whole chicken often, is because you have a lot of, sort of cartilage little pieces, tougher parts of the meat, little tendons and stuff. And stewing it this way makes all that just melt. So it all turns soft and it's all very pleasant. Once we add the chicken, we're going to add some chicken stock. This is one I prepared ahead of time. We're going to add about 3 cups of this to this size pan. It's really just enough to submerge the chicken. And we're going to add another splash of our browning sauce to kind of deepen these colors. Often use fresh thyme, but in this case we have ground thyme. Works just the same. We're going to add probably half a tablespoon, so quite a bit of this ground thyme. It's going to be one of the main flavors in this dish, as well as we're using a habanero pepper. So to change the spiciness of this dish, traditionally this is just chopped and put in. If you want it a little less spicy, more of a medium, you will cut this in half, empty out the seeds, discard those, and then simmer it that way. Or if you just want a little bit of the flavor, we'll add it in whole and just let that simmer with the rest of it so we can remove it later. And that is it. We're going to let this come up to a simmer. Let those flavors get to know each other. This will start to thicken. And for our next step, it'll be once this chicken is starting to soften up, it'll be about 20-30 minutes. Then we'll come back and show you how to finish this. Alright, so this has been simmering about 25 minutes now. It's thickened up quite a bit, a little too much in fact. So what we're going to do to loosen this back up is we're going to add just a touch more water and then our final ingredients. So, a little bit of water. And we're going to add our green onions. And lastly, we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of this ketchup here. Now it's going to sound a little weird to add ketchup to this, but it is how it is most often made. You can think of it as just adding tomato paste and vinegar and a little bit of sugar. So we're going to add probably a 1/4 cup actually. Mix these. You can see it's thickened right up. There is a race happening here. That's between the chicken being tender and the sauce being thickened. So it's better to err on the side of a little too much moisture. because you can always keep reducing it, but you just don't want that to burn. That is looking perfect. Now we're going to turn the heat down just a tad. We're going to add a lid so it does not reduce any further. We're going to let that sit about 5 minutes and we'll plate it up for you. So this here is the consistency we're looking for. You can see it's kind of silky, glossy, this sort of gravy that's with it. Set the pepper aside and we will plate some of this up. Oftentimes, this is served with the Jamaican staple, which is rice and peas. Today, we're serving it just over rice. This should be very tasty. And some of that sauce. This is a fairly low-fat recipe, very high in protein. It will be best served with some vegetables, but for the sake of our demonstration today, this is our final dish.